Hello, friends. Welcome. Welcome to yet another episode of Tea Talk with me, Owen Fernandez. I wish you a good morning, a good afternoon, and a good evening wherever in the world you are. Today is the 2nd of December 2021, a new month, the last of this year. Unfortunately, we are now seeing the emergence of a new COVID 19 variant that goes by the name Omicron. Friends, as I have said in the past, we are not yet through with this menace. We are not yet through with this pandemic. But one thing I know for sure, as a human race, we will prevail. But we must fight. So please respect all protocols and all restrictions that are in place as we are doing here and fighting this pandemic called the third wave of COVID 19 in Slovakia. Yesterday in the news, we were told that the schools are now going to be closed all across the country and they would shift on to the online mode of schooling. Once again, we as parents would be challenged. Also, yesterday I heard the sad news that the founder and CEO of the Daystar Television, Marcus Lamb, died of COVID complications at the age of 64 in Dallas, Texas. A sad news indeed, especially for me. He was very influential in my spiritual journey. I just pray and I pray that his family will be comforted at this point of time and that his soul would rest in peace. Friends, when such things happen to us, we tend to ask questions like, what does it mean to us, to me, and what must I do? So, keeping this thing in mind, I've decided that this episode, which is episode number 62, the topic for this episode is how to ask better questions so that we could get better answers. Friends, questions are an important part of the way we facilitate our curiosity, our self inquiry, and engage with others. Questions. Questions are essential to learning and staying relevant, viable in an ever changing, uncertain, ambiguous, and complex world. Think about it. If you don't question, why should or why would someone be answerable to you? Or why would someone answer you in the first place? Friends, the ability to ask good questions is hugely underrated. Asking good questions is essential for many things to help others, to learn from them, to understand the complexity of a problem and thus come up with the right solution, or to simply understand why someone is behaving the way they do. According to research conducted by the Harvard Business School, majority of us don't ask questions, and thus consequently we miss opportunities to learn something from and thus do not excel in our careers. So, in this episode, I will share with you what makes a question a good question. And I'll share with you six simple ways to ask better questions so that you get the answers that you really want. So, enough of this introduction for today. Grab a cup of tea or coffee, take a comfortable seat, relax as we go deeper into this topic. Episode number 62, how to ask better questions in order to get better answers. So, if you are on this call for the very first time, please let us know in the chat box where you are watching from and feel free to connect with me while I'm streaming live. Today is the 2nd of December 2021. I see a good friend of mine, Peter Bordage. He says he cannot believe that it's episode 62 already. Yes, it is. And I myself am very surprised. Thanks for showing up, Peter. There is a LinkedIn user which does not have a name. he or she says very much in agreement of and so important to stand together. Thank you so much. And I've got a very good friend of mine from Muscat, Oman, Amur Al Habsi. He says it's a very good topic. So, friends, without much ado, let's get going. Now, as usual, I like to start with a quote that is relevant to the topic, and this time it is from Peter Abelard. Peter Abelard was a medieval from the 12th century French scholastic philosopher. He was a leading logician, theologian, a poet, a composer, and also musician. Wonderful, so many things. Now he says the key to wisdom is this: constant and frequent questioning. He goes on to say that by doubting, we are led to question. By questioning, we arrive at the truth. I repeat, the key to wisdom is this: constant and frequent questioning. For by doubting, we are led to question, and by questioning, we arrive at the truth. Now, reading this, some believers may challenge me, and it is okay. Friends, even people of faith do at some point or the other question their faith and look for confirmations. For me personally, what usually began as confusion and questioning transformed into an experience that not only grew my personal faith, but also gave me the answers to help others today who may find themselves questioning their own. So it's perfectly all right. Now, most of you may by now know that I am in the profession of teaching and life coaching. So, friends, questions and questioning is central to my current living. Now, remember this: a good coach and a good mentor will stand out by the quality of questions they ask. Being able to ask purposeful, impactful, challenging, yet sensitive questions is a learned skill. It's an art and very powerful. Questioning enables us to innovate, solve problems, and move ahead in our careers and our lives. In fact, it also improves and informs our judgment, our decisions. It allows us for learning, sets the stage for change, and creates dialogue. So don't refrain yourself from asking relevant questions. Challenges that sometimes may seem simple and thus lead us to misjudge others. Now, as a teacher and as a coach, I know, and I know this very well, that no question is a stupid question to the person to whom this thought came in the first place, and thus we must respect it. So, this message goes out to parents: respect questions if it comes out from your children, no matter when they ask and why are they asking. I see a very good friend of mine, Enife, from Nigeria. Thank you so much for showing up. There's also Pratik from India. Wonderful. There are people that have shown up to today. So, as I said, there is no question that is a stupid question or a foolish question. So, don't judge people. Today, friends, quality questions are being identified as the new answers. Now, John Maxwell, my personal mentor, wrote a book. I show it here right now, if you can see. It's called Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. Wonderful book. It challenged leaders say to ask questions rather than taking irrational decisions on the basis of rank, power, position. Bear in mind that most leaders don't know all things. So if what you know is limited, what you do will also be limited. So if there are any leaders listening to this episode, learn to ask good questions. Questions can catalyze innovation. Questions can reveal more effective answers. In fact, through questioning, we get a chance to take the things that we think we know and look at them a little bit differently. Think about it. So this brings me to the point, says what is a good question? First and foremost, a good question can easily be identified, friends, if it stimulates thinking. It is just not asking the obvious. It must and should trigger thinking. And thinking is the highest capability of a human being. And the sad part is that most of us don't think. Your question should stimulate thinking from the person that you are asking this so that you could solicit an answer by giving an opportunity for that person to think before answering. The second criteria of what could be a good question is that it should be single dimensional. Now, what do I mean by that? Remember, one question is just one question, period. And hence, a good question focuses on one dimension at a time. You just can't ask 10 or maybe 5 or maybe 4 questions in one sentence. People will get overwhelmed and nervous too. If there are multiple ideas to evaluate, it is better to split them into multiple questions. The third test for a good question is that it must be relevant. A good question must be relevant. It focuses on recall of only the material covered or only the context in which you are speaking and aligns well with overall learning and development. It must stimulate thinking. It should be preferably a single dimension. It must be relevant. Add to it a question, a good question must be clearly framed. Needless to say, friends, it should be easily understandable in a language that you converse with the person without any ambiguity or without any vagueness. Another test of a good question is that it should be concise. A good question should usually be crisp and concise. It should eliminate or omit any unnecessary information that could probably create chaos and confusion and thus would require some time for the person that you are looking an answer from to understand it correctly. Short, simple, precise, clear, relevant, single dimension that stimulates thinking, and finally, it should be purposeful. Friends, a question without a definite purpose has absolutely no value. The purpose helps evaluate the question against some benchmark or against some previous information or against some relevant knowledge. A good question can seek both innate and specific knowledge. So I've just shared with you what a good question should look like. So let's get a little further and let's discuss how can you ask questions that will give you answers that really matter. Oh, I have got a very good friend of mine, a very professional photographer, and a previous student of my MBA class, Matt Ribansky. Matt, if you're still on the call, I say hello and welcome. So, let me share some 6 ways that you can frame better questions. But at the front end of it, let me mention this: all teaching and learning lies in the art of questioning. I repeat, all teaching and learning lies in the art of questioning. So bear in mind, number one, know what you want to know and choose carefully. Words are very powerful. You can bless somebody, you can hate somebody, or you can hurt somebody. So be careful about what you want to know and choose your words carefully. Ask yourself this: why are you asking this question? Are you meeting someone for the first time that you would like to know something more about them? Or are you understanding the needs of your client, your customer? Or are you helping someone? Now, depending on this, your questions should differ, making it relevant. When you know that, carefully decide your path by choosing the right words in order to get the information that you are looking for. And always remember, be polite. Don't force yourself. So, know what you want to know and choose carefully. The second one is ask open questions as far as possible. If you're asking yes or no questions and expecting to end up with a deeply nuanced conversation, then you are unlikely to achieve your aims. Questions that begin with what, where, when, how, and who should all lead to an answer that requires reflection and leads to a fuller response that provides information that you can actually work on or work with to better understand the individual. Now, if you ask open questions and if you are able to process the information that you get, you can also engage with them further on how to develop and improve. Using why questions will also provide an open ending answer. However, bear in mind that these questions can, to some, seem confrontational and critical, and thus are best used in the right context and sometimes very sparingly to ensure that you don't end up creating a hostile atmosphere. Ask as far as possible open questions, but don't make it an obvious. You are free to ask open questions, but not always. While you can only answer closed questions with a yes or no, agreed with an open one, you can answer as you like. And in fact, you can get more information. But there are some exceptions when a closed answer is stronger and more powerful than an open one, especially in the process of interrogation. For example, when you are caught, or when the police or the crime branch or anything that involves in controlling activity that is not legal, such approaches are always brought into the picture closed end questions. For example, when we would like someone to state something more clearly or with more confidence, or if you would like to understand better what's in their mind, one could repeat the question one asks, or the answer that is given could be rephrased in order to make the person say yes or no in a closed way. And it mostly happens in courtrooms and at the police station or something involving crime. Number 3, remember that less is more when it comes to questioning, and if you do it well. So if you want to question, make sure that don't ask questions in quick successions. Less is more, so that your questioning would be of immense value, and learn to keep it simple. Stick to one question at a time and only rephrase if the respondent does not understand it. And again, make sure you do it politely. So if you're unhappy with the answer, feel free to ask again and make sure that the question you put to someone is understood by the person you're looking an answer from. Now, in order to make your questions relevant and important and of value, learn to listen actively. Friends, when listening to the answers, most of us don't do it well. We need to really listen to what the other people or other person is saying. Talk as little as you can. Now, even better, don't talk, listen. Now, what happens is that when you listen, this will give the respondent the feeling that you are genuinely interested in what he or she is saying. Also, don't think about what you are going to ask next. Many of them do that. In fact, some of them do while the respondent is still talking, and that's disrespectful. Now, this takes a lot of experience. Let me tell you that it's difficult to learn to do this, but trust me, the next question will arise by itself once you are really listening to what a person is saying. Listen actively. Point number 5 I would like to share is put questions that can lead you to have a deeper conversation, just not a surface talk. Know your level of depth. Know where you stand in the conversation and what role you play. And if you want your questions to take you to a deeper level, do it. And if your position or if your status does not allow you to do that, be on the surface so that you respect the person. Friends, not every conversation lends itself to go into depth. Think about it. If you do, it's usually best to start on the surface level and over a period of time as as both you and the person and the conversation allows you to give more space, then you can go deeper with time. So it's just not you rattling and you showing power, or you're just confronting somebody asking a lot of questions in order to get information and answers. Be decent, be respectful. If the conversation allows you to ask, or with the permission of somebody that you want to get answers from, respectfully, then go deeper into the conversation. And point number 6, and this would be quite interesting, ask naive questions at times. Dr. Ian O'Brien, a digital architect, educator, professor, and researcher, believes the best questions are naive questions because they sometimes set you off on a different path. Now, that's interesting. He says that naive questions work because they lower defenses. Think about it. Think about it. He says that naive questions work because they lower defenses and people feel less threatened. They also force us to put aside stock answers. And when he says stock answers, the obvious answers. So don't stop yourself from asking naive questions at time. In fact, they help activate prior knowledge and sometimes get to the root of the situation. He says this can even slacken a conversation pace, and it it all happens in a good friendly way. So don't be afraid to look stupid and ask that naive question. As I said, there are no stupid questions. And trust me, the answer that you can get differs a lot of times from the answer that you thought you'd get. And once you know what's really going on, you'll be a lot smarter than the people acting on wrong information. So, friends, think about it. Know what you want know what you want to know. Ask open questions as much as possible. I have Amur there asking, what about the five whys? Now, the five whys are who, what, where, whom, and when. Good questions. But most of us ask these questions and fail to listen. And when we fail to listen, we fail to process that has been said. And thus, we are still lacking information. Why? Because we didn't respect the person responding and did not process what he or she wanted to say. So, in the capacity of a coach, it is extremely important for me to listen and even get something between spoken words. Sometimes it's very difficult to extract information from people, especially in a one to one coaching session. So, you've got to be very careful not to cross the line. And it's okay to ask naive questions because it just brings down the defenses and makes things open. So, as I finish these episodes, friends, I would like to quote a statement from a Romanian French playwright by the name of Eugene Ionesco. He says, it's not the answer that enlightens, but the question. Think about it, friends. It's not the answer that enlightens, but the question. So, as I summarize this, asking questions is natural and intuitive. In fact, sometimes naive questions as we grow allows us to think, to innovate, and address certain problematic situations. Friends, remember this. Questions are powerful because they increase commitment and improve the outcome of any situation. Questions are powerful because they help focus thinking. And when you get focused thinking, you can create breakthrough answers. You can come out with solutions that you never thought about it before. Friends, thanks for watching. Now, if you see my slides today on the right side, there is a book, my second book, that is going to be born into this world on the 13th of December 2021. It's available on Amazon, both in Kindle as well as in paperback version. You can also find it in stores in Barnes and Noble and in other places as well. Now, this book is something that I came out for a season like this. So if you feel good and if you want to read something, this book contains 11 powerful stories of people that who have overcome one of the most difficult situations of their personal lives. So I encourage you to buy this book, and in the process, you're helping a good cause, as a percentage of this book has been given or is going to be given to a missionary organization called Missions for Orphans, which help rescue street children and give them a home in India. So, thanks for watching. You will find the references of what has been shared in this episode at the end of this talk. Feel free to use them further for your personal growth and attention and development. And for all those that have been on the call today, I do appreciate your support and your encouragement. So, friends, if you liked this episode, please comment and share. Also, you could go to my YouTube channel where all the previous 61 episodes are lined up for you to use, for you to watch, for you to share. And if you like, please do subscribe to it. There you will find this video as well as many other videos. Remember, friends, the win is within you. I, Owen Fernandez, am here to help you be victorious. I believe in you, and together we can. So stay safe. See you on the next episode next week on Tea Time with me, Owen. Bye for now.